Hello and welcome to the Charmed Life Podcast. This podcast is all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe. And I am your host. My name is Tricia Carr. I'm excited about this episode because it is with a friend of a friend, and he is now my new friend. His name is Gabriel Johnston. We have a conversation about many topics, mysticism and self-help and spiritual development. Gabriel is a hypnotherapist, breathwork facilitator, and initiated Buddhist Lama. And we have a lot in common, and also a lot that we have to share with one another, a lot of wisdom, I guess. And so as I invite you into this conversation, I would like to also remind you that I would very much appreciate it if you would follow the podcast or subscribe, however your app presents it. And if you would share it with someone else, that would be amazing. And of course, if you would like to give us a review, just scroll down in your app. You can give stars. You can leave actually some kind of statement about the review. It really helps me so much. And I'm really excited about this new year that we have going on, guys. I hope you're excited about it too. Well, with that, here is my conversation with Gabriel Johnston, and I will chat with you on the other side. Well, Gabriel, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to connect with you. You come so very highly recommended. We haven't really gotten to know each other yet, so I'm excited to be able to actually do that here on the episode. And so you come recommended by the Saruda, who I think as I'm publishing these may have been just the previous episode, but this is recorded. So I'm not really sure I'm pretty sure that's how it's going. So everyone.
I think so too.
Yeah. And Saruda has been on the podcast now 3 times. So with that, I'm really excited to connect. So why don't you get us all? I mean, me too. Tell me about your journey. Tell us about the work that you're doing. Anywhere you'd like to start with this wonderful work that you do.
Well, that's a good way to start it, actually, because when I was thinking about sort of an origin story, so to speak, it does coincide very closely to when I started working with Saruda and when I first met him, and it was a very funny series of events. But basically, a few weeks before I turned 18, I was super overconfident, just living my best life, felt untouchable, et cetera, like, invincible and all that. And I didn't really have the same regard for my life or the safety of myself, etc. Anyway, I partied with some friends and ended up being a designated driver and ended up street racing with my friend the night that I was supposed to be the safe designated driver. And I totaled a Lexus going like 90 around a corner where I was supposed to go 40, and the hydroplane that was going 70. And it was just an extremely, extremely close call with death.
Wow.
And it really, really shocked me awake because it nearly killed one of my absolute best friends at the time. And it was really, really hard for me to accept that I had been the sole one responsible for that. And I didn't even think about this until just now, but I think because I was forced to take responsibility for that, it sort of gestated the process of me taking responsibility for other aspects of my life moving forward. But basically 3 weeks after that, we both made, myself and my really good friend, we both made super fast recoveries. She had a bit of a concussion and whiplash damage. I had a couple cracked ribs. It was extremely minor. Like, it could have been so much worse. And the biggest damage was really psychological, it put me into a really dark spiral very quickly. And I was having a very hard time living with myself. And what ended up happening is a few weeks later, I was working with some plant medicines and doing a really deep meditation. And I was basically guided to access the part of my body that was holding on to all the resentment, the self-hatred, just the memory of the experience. And it was coincidentally, it was all locked into that part of my ribs that had been broken. It was the exact same spot, which was just fascinating. And I learned later about the fascia and all that. But basically, I started to breathe into that space. And like this inner voice was just saying, don't try to run from this. Don't try to bypass it. Just go right into it and just feel it. And feel it really, really deeply. And so I went right into that core, and it was like reliving the worst flashback. And I breathed into it instead of like trying to escape it, and started exhaling and feeling like heat leaving my hands and feet and mouth. And I kept doing that. And keep in mind, I'm not recommending this to someone who's going through a really intense psychological process, because that was maybe not the wisest call, but I had a lot of experience working with these things already. Anyways, kept breathing and releasing that trauma out of my system until I reached a place where I felt like relatively okay. Like I knew I hadn't fully resolved everything there, but until I felt like I'd made everything right with everyone who I had affected by that experience, I was okay not feeling completely okay.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward about a month, my whole life has started to shift really, really fast. I was doing volunteer work with an organization planting a bunch of trees. It's called the Plantathon. We planted like 6,500 trees this day. And we did that. I was trying to, basically when I realized that I'd been given a second chance at life, I was kind of like I was shot out of a cannon. Like I felt like I had to do everything at the most intense level. So I was simultaneously doing what's called polyphasic sleeping. So I was sleeping like 4 hours a night, taking little power naps. It was a horrible stream of events. Like it was really not good for me in retrospect. But I was doing that, planted a bunch of trees, went with friends to a birthday party in Bellingham, and it was at a pool. And in the pool is where I met Saruda. And I just saw this like interesting looking hippie dude with a whole bunch of Buddhist tattoos. And I was like, I need some backstory. And he told me almost nothing about himself, but we exchanged contact info. And then he started sending me a couple of email documents with different practices. And I was reading them and I was like, whoa, this is so next level. And I started just absorbing everything like a sponge. And when he could tell that I was really serious about wanting to learn the things that he had to teach, he was like, oh, okay, well, I want to introduce you to one of my mentors as well. And that was Sifu Aman, who is, he may have talked about already, but it's a close colleague of his. And so then those two started taking me under their wing and mentoring me extensively in a whole bunch of different stuff. And that was kind of how it all started.
Wow. That's awesome. You're a hypnotherapist. So, well, the work that you just to remind everyone, or in case they didn't hear any of the podcasts with Saruda, Thai Buddhist magic. Yes, is that essentially the work that you do that you're his mentee for? That sentence didn't come out right.
That's a good question, actually. So he just came down to Vegas and he guided my girlfriend and I through a really deep initiation into the Ajarn school, which is the Khmer Lama forest monk traditions. That's very ritualistic. That's like working with talismans and spirits and offerings and altars and consecrations and a lot of other words. So that's kind of that aspect. But coming from Aman and Tanner, they initially started teaching me breathwork, qigong, hypnotherapy, and basically how to weave all those together into a really, really potent template for healing or helping people to heal their trauma and to re-empower themselves. So that has kind of been the sole focus for the most part. And then I've been able to translate the stuff I've learned from there into retreat atmospheres too.
Wonderful.
Retreats. Yeah, it's been
That's really wonderful. Do you do one-on-one services as well?
Oh yeah,
mentoring and so do you do hypnotherapy as a separate service as well?
I blend it. So I studied with Dr. David Snyder, who he's really well known in the NLP community for producing a lot of cool stuff. And we were certified directly with him in hypnosis and identity by design, which is a really, really cool formula on its own. It's like a silo of different practices that allow us to identify, okay, this is our system, this is our self and our personality, this is our nervous system. Maybe there are some glitching programs here, here, and here, and those are stopping us from being in total congruence with what our inner voice is telling us we want to do. So we're going to use those practices, identify the sludge and muck and things that are stuck, clear it out, identify those roots, transform them, call in some new states of being, anchor safety states into the body, et cetera, and then we amplify that with a strong state of drive or motivation or something. So they can step away from the session feeling extremely empowered and inspired and ready to take action on the things that are important to them.
Oh, yes. That's a great system. I feel all of that. And just this morning, the last piece that you were saying, the strong will, the drive, and motivation, that's an important step. That is such an important step. And NLP is one of the practices that does typically has that full package and has that last
Mm-hmm.
piece. And that was something just in my, my morning personal with myself healing session, meditation, time with my guides. They kind of amplified that part, that amplification. They're like,
Mm.
look, you know how to use will, you know how to use drive. Sometimes that's the carrot sometimes. And that helps you to make the connection. It's like sometimes we're inside out and sometimes we're outside in, but as long as the connection is whole, as long as you come together holistically, then it's going to work. I mean, I guess you're usually inside out, but at
What do you
least for
mean by
me,
sometimes we're outside in, sometimes inside out? What do you mean by that?
I
Like a
mean, like,
feedback loop of posture and emotions and posture or something like that, or different?
kind of, yeah, I think that would be a good way to say it. I mean, sometimes that we do need to focus on will and motivation in order to, and then connect that into the inside. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm-hmm.
And because sometimes the will and motivation will help us to overcome some fears of acting, some
That's a
fears.
really good point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to then the inside out would be, okay, how do I feel? And how do I let that bubble up and well up into this expansion that will then connect to the action? You see what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm. It's the kind of almost like the
yeah,
masculine versus the feminine way of
totally.
processing and addressing
Absolutely.
things. And
Absolutely. I think that's best way to sum it up. And I think that where we are, I don't know if this is landscape or if it's just the human race at this time. I think that feminine, the inside out is maybe who knows what more of the time. Maybe it's only 51% of the time. Maybe it's 99% of the time. However, I think that because I think there's been an overuse of that masculine, of the will and the drive, and and it's not connecting to the
right.
inside.
Right, we
But
were watching a Tony Robbins
yeah,
thing today that he just
yeah.
started. It's like a 5-day challenge. He's just like, yes, yes. It's so over the top. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Actually, in martial arts, there's this idea of when you throw a punch, for example, like the ways that I've learned, it's you're very, very soft and relaxed. You're 99%
Hmm.
yin until
Hmm.
that point of impact, and then everything snaps into the power, and that's what really gives it the biggest push. Um,
Yes.
and
Or
and
when
they're
you
really
when you
yes.
pull when you squeeze the trigger of a gun, you take a breath first and completely relax, and then you squeeze. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
99% yin. That's probably right. But we do need that last piece, whatever percentage it is, that
Mhm.
motivation, that will, that movement. We need that, or it just
Exactly.
doesn't happen.
The way I translate that into my daily practice is like in the morning on my best days, just a silent meditation, like nothing guided,
Hmm.
nothing that
Yeah.
will fire my brain up immediately because my brain is typically very fast and has a lot of stuff going through it. And I'm not trying to quiet my mind or do anything. It's just like allowing the thoughts to appear, relaxing, releasing them with the breath, and just scanning and just body scanning.
Hmm.
And for me, that really sets me up for success because I'm starting the day in a space of stillness, reharnessing, training that mental muscle of focus. And then when I reach a point where I feel good, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 10 minutes. It just depends on the day of what feels good. Then I'll go into movement, then I'll go hit the gym, then I'll do my Qigong, something like that. And it's like the stillness, it's a very Taoist concept, but this idea that all form is created from the formless, or
Hmm.
all sound comes from stillness and silence. So
Yeah.
when we really give ourselves that permission to go totally in, totally surrender, totally soft, it like really empowers the masculine movement aspect. Right.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, part of that, if we're thinking about it again, this is just for the sake of visualizing it or grasping it. If it's 99% yin, it actually just showed me it's like conception. You have one little sperm, and then everything else is the feminine instrument for a while, the whole gestation period.
Hmm.
But we only needed that one trigger in order
Right.
to begin
It's a
it.
funny way to look at it for
The
sure.
one little cell, the one little guy.
For sure.
But then, of
And I,
course, it expands into the whole universe. But yes. Hmm.
also wonder too, when we're talking about yin or we're talking about feminine
Hmm.
energy, I think the other side of that is whether it's a guy or a girl, like that part's not important. But wherever you are, if you resonate more with this specific energy, like for example, because I'm here in a male body, I'm really feeling called to step up more and more into learning and embodying the masculine energy, the energy of
Hmm.
movement, courage, assertiveness, all those things, but also have a healthy balance and be emotionally available and open and all those things. And even with qigong, like there are very very soft qigong practices that are super super gentle and really build that soft feminine aspect of ourselves. And there are also very strong, intense warrior forms that come out too. And because I'm learning about the masculine aspect, I'll tend to check in with the more feminine forms very occasionally, because it's that little bit of yin inside the yang. But
Mm-hmm.
for someone like my girlfriend, she does a lot of dancing and movement and things like that to like focus a lot on that. And then she'll tap into the power pose or something like that on occasion to kind of create that balance.
Right. Well, and just think about birthing, that the strength of that, the trajectory of labor and of pushing a being out into the world. I mean, that's a masculine kind of energy, if we will, not again, not man and woman as much as the energies of
Energies.
assertiveness and passivity. And I heard Marianne Williamson say it once. She said that, generally speaking, of course, that women are here to as doing a master course on feminine, and men are here doing a master course on masculine. Once again, being sensitive to every, all of the possible gender identities. That's not what we're
Exactly.
talking about. We're not talking about any of that. We're just talking about the polarity, the divine genders. And yeah, and so I think that kind of aligns with what you're saying, like between what you tend to gravitate toward versus your girlfriend. Yeah.
And it's a natural calling. So no matter what body you came in with, if one energy is calling to you and feeling
Yeah.
like your true self, chase that and embrace it fully, because that's what we're here to do. But I hear that, and I've talked to my girlfriend about this, and it was kind of confusing at first when I first started bringing this up. But I realized when I was 5 or 6 that I'd lived a lot of lives as a woman, and I was suddenly in this male body, and it just felt weird. And I was like, what's going on? Like, it felt so strange, and I was having a hard time accepting that. And then over time, as I've sort of made peace with that past life, it's felt more natural. I was like, okay, like I must have actually chose this. So how can I embrace this and really learn about the masculine principle? Because I do already have these innate abilities developed for space holding and for the other aspects. So maybe I chose this on purpose to learn about what that is.
I definitely have a lot of masculine lives that I recall. When I recall or connect with past lives, I would say they're mostly masculine. And maybe that's because of the balancing. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if you could even count your past lives. I mean, for example, one of the lives that I gently recall and don't want to re-traumatize myself to recall too much of it is being somehow a warrior with Genghis Khan, a man.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like that's like just a humbling idea, you know what I mean? Like that's in your soul complex. That kind of thing went on, So you just said, you mentioned, I'm sure a lot of people's ears pricked up about past lives. Oh, you remember your past lives and everything. So you recalled past lives or had a connection to that as a child. Do you remember what that was like for you?
That's a good question. As a child, I wasn't aware that that's what I was tuning into. I was just realizing that that I felt very odd in the body that I had. I had like a clear sense that my body had been shaped at one point differently. And then later in my life, when I started working with different psychedelic plant medicines and having transformations of consciousness happen from those, I'd look in the mirror and I'd see myself fully morph into a woman and be like, whoa, what was that? And at first I was really uncomfortable and didn't really know what I was seeing, because I was like, I like girls, like I'm whatever. So at first that was uncomfortable. And then I started to tune in more to the fact that it was like that part of myself had maybe fragmented, didn't feel completely resolved within that experience. And so my part of my healing was going back and identifying the open loops, so to speak, the parts of myself that felt a need for closure, and creating total closure and safety, just like we heal any other traumatic memory, so that could sort of integrate into my being to be more present here and now. But another question about the past lives. So Sadhu Da did teach us a really amazing form of past life regression when he was here, and he did do one with Noelani and I. And she was like this beautiful like queen living in like some fairyland world, and it was all medieval and great. And I was like a cowboy who just like killed a lot of people and robbed a bunch of banks. And I was just like, no.
It's like my past life. I'm like, I was a raping pillager. How terrible.
Yeah. Right. It's like, Gabriel, this is why you're having a hard time with money right now. You robbed a lot of banks, so this is your karma contract. And I'm like, oh God.
They
But
can both be very helpful, though,
and the cool thing about past life regression is when you actually go back and identify those blocks, you can sort of rewrite your Akashic records and sort of
Yes.
conclude those chapters so that they don't keep affecting us in this present
Yeah,
incarnation.
and it's just like inner child work as well. When you are with the inner child and you actually give the child what he or she needs, you rewrite your whole past, if you
Completely.
will. Yeah.
Because it's all happening now. So it's
Mhm.
actually like you are going
Yeah.
back there and holding space for that version of you that maybe felt alone or scared. That's the
Mhm.
crazy thing. We learned a practice called Womb of Eternity when we worked with with Dr. Snyder, and that's been one of my favorite practices because you basically the first part is called Voice of Authority. So you identify, is there a negative self-talk voice in my head? And if there is, this voice probably didn't come from me. It probably came from a parental figure, someone like that. And you reach out, you grab the voice, you turn it off, and you stick it somewhere else. And you basically just shut it down. And
Mhm.
then you identify, maybe you've had someone who is a really loving, compassionate mentor for you. Maybe there were multiple. Maybe you've never had anything like that. But if you were to imagine what a loving mentor would feel and act and sound like, notice what that would act and sound like. And you identify it in the body. You
Mhm.
basically saturate your whole system, your whole soma in these really encouraging, positive, loving messages. And you saturate yourself in that emotion. And then you go on a visualization journey back to the moment before you were even conceived, when you're just a spark of consciousness in the womb, and you funnel like all your love and compassion and life
Mhm.
experience into that version, and then very, very, very slowly walk it all the way through forward into time until you reach the present moment, and then gathering all that wisdom, you move forward through your future. So you're visualizing how your future transforms in the most beautiful way, carrying all that good energy with you, all the encouragement and love, and then you backdoor it, you wrap it back around from all your future timelines of the highest timelines back into your little self as a spark, and you just basically cycle it. But what it does is it backdoors every single moment of your life with a really, really, really deep container of unconditional love and support,
Yeah,
and it's powerful.
it
Yeah.
is. And now for these messages. Hey guys, it's Tricia Carr. I have new exciting things going on with my Mystic Arts Academy. You can now subscribe to receive all of the live monthly content for about a third of the investment of a single class. Included are at least one downloadable guided meditation per month, 2 live events ranging from classes, channeled messages, group readings, intuitive development guidance, Q&A sessions, and tons of community. You'll also have access to a private Facebook community for fellowship and support, and this space is kept super sacred and high vibrational. Your subscription gives you access to the whole library of classes and live events, which are on a vast array of topics. All events are offered online by Zoom video call. Subscribing to the Mystic Arts Academy is also a way for you to support the Charmed Life podcast and engage on a deeper level. I'm offering the subscription at a super low rate of $22 a month. Joining now locks in this rate for as long as you're subscribed. Click on the description of this episode or go to my website, triciacarcharm.com, and click on Mystic Arts Academy. I look forward to connecting. Hey, Crystal.
Yes.
I have to confess that I am an astrology dum-dum.
Ugh, me too.
And that's why I'm so excited about Lightshine Academy's upcoming astrology workshop.
Ooh, is that the weekend workshop taught by Alicia Clark Tepper, where we're going to learn how to plan our year by the stars?
I mean, the stars know who you are.
They know who I am? Then by all means, please join us for this fun, educational, and informative weekend workshop.
Astrology Empowered by the Cosmos, a fabulous live weekend workshop taking place February 26th and 27th, 2022. 2 immersive and attuning days, teaching you to forecast and plan your upcoming year using your solar return chart. Now, this is a technique you can use for the rest of your life. Go to class.lightshineacademy.com/astrology and register now. It's going to be magical. Hi, everyone. It's Tricia. And if you have been listening to my podcast for a while or watching me on YouTube, then perhaps you already have an idea of what it is that I do. And I want to invite you to do it one-on-one because I actually haven't been doing one-on-one sessions regularly or for a while, but I have a new romance that I've developed with doing my one-on-one sessions. And so this is a special invitation to people who feel aligned with the work, the teaching that I share, and you think you would feel aligned with working with me, because I am particular about the frequency that I cast out for those that I work one-on-one with. Well, I have now open on my schedule empathic channeling sessions, which include channeling, intuitive reading, of course, my proprietary modality, quantum resonance healing. It would also include intuitive counseling and mentoring, spiritual education, possibly hypnotherapy and hypnohealing, plus NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And I have a few different categories of the way that I am offering these sessions. So go check out my website. That's triciacarcharm.com. And you'll find empathic channeling. You'll find one-on-one sessions. And in addition to that, I've also opened up space and charged up my sacred space for animal telepathy and healing sessions. These are one-on-one with your animal and you, and I have it available with one animal, two animals, three animals, and anything more than that. We can do a special farm, sanctuary, or rescue appointment. Those are also available, and I love that work so much. So with that, I want to invite you to check those out because I'm very passionate about signaling to those people that are interested in working with me, but also we can expand together in this beautiful world. So thank you so much. Check it out. I hope to see you soon. It is. It's amazing what we can do. And by the way, if you have speaking to the audience, if you have a meditation practice, if you've taught yourself to empty the mind and to do your own self-healing, this like what Gabriel is talking about can happen very intuitively, very naturally. So can, reviewing your past life, so can the inner child healing. And I would say, I've worked with, I have a hypnotherapist and she's also my mentor, and I have, all kinds of healers that I've worked with, but some of the most evidential, basically healing experiences, meaning like something that happened immediately from that healing, was my own self-healing process. And it's pretty amazing. Oh, I want to tell you, just thinking about like these basically working in the quantum timelines, there's something that my guides taught me, and it's a technique that I teach in the Energy Intensive Everyone, which is a program that my partner and I run about once per year. And it's like a thought form self release. So essentially, when I find myself, it's kind of like that critic, that inner critic voice, but it's really like it's a version of myself, and it's like a holograph of myself, and it's a version of myself who is containing the negative thoughts, the limiting beliefs, the limiting actions, and I actually see this hologram lift off of me, and I do a ho'oponopono with her, and then I cross her over into the light, just like you would any other ghost or something. I just cross over, say, thank you for your service. Thank you for being here, but I don't need you anymore. And it's your turn. It's your time to actually rest and be free. And that's, I don't know, something that you have ever considered, that I'd just share that with you as we're talking about this.
That's cool, actually. So I relate to that in terms of shadow work.
Yes, very much.
Which is
it's a shadow working.
Right. And I've been playing a lot with that recently. Like I'll take out a journal, and this has come to me from different experiences, but sometimes I'll journal like, what does the voice of fear want to communicate? And I'll just write down everything, and I'll just basically identify where are feelings in my body, whether it's self-loathing or fear or despair or anger or resentment or bitterness, whatever it is. I go there and I just become that, and I get everything out that energy can possibly have. And that way, it doesn't have anywhere to hide. It's being revealed to the light of our consciousness. We're fully bringing it up to be witnessed. And then on the back, like writing an intention, like may all this energy be transmuted and basically transmuted into unconditional love and funneled back through to me. And then I'll let it on fire.
Yes.
As a transmutation process. And going back to what you were saying a few minutes ago about how the most potent healing happens when we sort of get out of our own way and just intuitively work. It kind of goes back into what you're talking about with the 99% feminine. Like, and I've talked to other mentors about this too. It's like we learn a set of tools and practices to a point, and then it basically, it sets you up to feel safe enough to let go of needing any of that, and just your internal guidance systems will take you exactly where you need to do, or where you need to go, and you'll do the deepest levels of healing from that. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes,
I
absolutely.
totally resonate with that too.
And what's important, I think, because you mentioned earlier, like when you went into that injury in the ribs and that, you don't necessarily recommend that during psychological stress or acute strain of some kind. So, because what is necessary for this is the capacity to be neutral and objective as you
And you
look
feel
at
safe.
the voice. Safe, exactly. As you
Mhm.
put on the page the voice of fear and all of its messages, that you
Mhm.
are able
That you're
to
not judging it, that you're not
not
becoming that
judging.
voice. Yeah, that's a
Yes,
really
not
good point.
not letting it over, identify to you so that you're afraid of it. But if you can stand
Exactly.
outside of it, yeah, and
Exactly,
then
taking that step back.
mhm.
Something a man talked to me about years ago that has helped me so much, because I used to be terrified of my shadow self. I was like, "Who is this dark demonic entity that's not all love and light? What the fuck?" Right? And he's like, "Gabriel, it's okay. Like, it's just a 5-year-old. Look at it as a 5-year-old.
Mhm.
It's a
It
5-year-old
is.
that's really just wants love and to feel safe and seen and validated and good enough." And I was like, "Whoa." So that means that nothing is actually more powerful than this awareness, and I can just observe it and not judge it or put it down or push it away. Or it's powerful. It's really powerful when we can almost just look into those darker parts of ourselves with curiosity, with love, with almost like amusement, but gently, like we're parents, and just like
Mhm.
blast those parts of ourselves with that love, and just say, like, you know what, you're safe. Like, I don't need you to go away. I don't need to get rid of you. Like, you're totally safe. You're totally good enough as you are. I just want to let you know you're completely unconditionally loved, forgiven, and valued, and all those things. And pretty much, pretty soon, what happens is it just transmutes, and you're
Yeah.
just left feeling light. But
It does all come down to the inner child because, the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind with the traumas and everything that mostly kind of cements itself in between ages 0 and 8, maybe up to 14, and then a repeat, reinforce. So every time we
yeah,
are triggered, sad, scared, unsafe, it's a 5-year-old. It's
hmm
every time. And to be able to be in the position then of the divine parent and love the
hmm
divine child, that's the secret to life. We solved it. We solved life, Gabriel.
Have you seen Ralph Smart? Uh,
Oh, it sounds familiar.
Infinite Waters Diving Deep.
It sounds familiar. I think it's comedian.
He's,
It's comedic, right?
he's got a YouTube channel. Right
Yeah.
when you said that, I was like, and it's not even breakfast yet. Can I get a hello? It's like, that's his whole thing.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Well, that inner child working is there, and that's something. Actually, I do have a meditation or a hypno journey available, I think, on my website. So if anybody's interested, and if you know what, let's say it is on my website, so I will post a link in the description if anybody wants to do some of that working
mhm.
on their own. If we can, it's amazing to be so disarmed by the fact that it's just a wounded child, just a wounded child.
Because the child is basically like, it's like the Wizard of Oz, where the man behind the curtain creates this huge,
Yeah.
terrifying display. And that's what we experience. And maybe we're having all these unconscious actions that show that there are parts of ourselves that are unhealed that have the capacity to be really toxic or dark. But
Yeah.
when we really look behind all of that and look behind the curtain, yeah, it is very oftentimes just a part of ourselves that's like, hey, like, I really want to feel seen and noticed. Like, I'm doing
Hmm.
my best, but I'm scared and I feel alone. And I'm angry and I feel hurt and betrayed or this or that. And you just hold that space for yourself.
Hmm. I, I
And
I don't know if I heard this from someone or if it was just something that I channeled in meditation, but it was like day before yesterday, and it was um, in order to manifest, in order to be in like create and have manifestation, your inner child needs to feel safe. You have to acknowledge and nurture and love, which again is contrary to kind of the old paradigm of
just
forcing
state
people.
control. Yeah.
Yeah, staying in control or just bootstrap it, whatever it is.
Just
Yeah.
grind, work yourself into the bone. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's definitely a different way to look at it. And something
Hmm.
too that's worth adding, because I've referenced psychedelics a couple times. Those are like, our psyche is a very fragile thing.
Hmm.
And it's extremely important that if people feel drawn or interested in working with those medicines, do so with someone who's um, extremely qualified and has tons and tons of years of experience to facilitate a really safe journey for you.
Yeah.
And more on that, I really got into learning breathwork and hypnotherapy and qigong and these other tools, EFT. I do a lot of tapping as well. Those, because they can create a really powerful shift in consciousness, but it's almost like they're more precise. Like you're not going to be as scattered or off in the clouds or ungrounded. You can stay very grounded, very smooth, kind of get to the root of what's going on, clean stuff up, re-empower yourself, and you come out of it and like the whole time you're being guided through it. And it's like a very, very steady experience. And obviously a big part of that is feeling safe and establishing a really safe container. But yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, and I'm, by the way, I should, just to let everyone know, like psychedelics, it's not for me. I mean, I'm just energetically, physically, and energetically not aligned with doing actually anything. I can't even, THC, I can't do it. It makes all of my energy centers open up so much. It hurts.
Too much. Totally. Yeah.
It's too much. It's just how I am made. So I know that about myself. However, someone like my husband, I think he hasn't done it yet. Any psychedelics. I think psilocybin would be nice for him. And he's, he just hasn't gotten around to it, that kind of thing. The psychedelics or psilocybin or something along those lines, they were like a really potent catalyst, and that can be really helpful. Whereas all the other practices you're talking about, they're sustainable. Whereas they can create a potent catalyst, but they're going to stay within sustainability. Because I've had a couple of clients, actually, only two, but a couple of clients who had one, I remember in particular, an ayahuasca experience. And in a sense, I think that she wasn't really spiritually developed to meet it, because she became very depressed, because she's like, now how do I live? Because I don't know how to be there. I don't know how to access it in any way. Like she couldn't draw the benefit through into her life.
Yeah, there's so much integration and so much daily processes. Yeah.
And she did eventually. Took her years, but you know what I mean? Like, but she had to do those sustainable practices, the development path.
That's a really important point as well, because our sense of identity is a series of memorized habits and routines. Yeah. And it does not like exactly. You can take a psychedelic medicine and have a really, really profound experience and go into extremely high states of consciousness. Like 5-MeO, DMT, for example, takes people almost immediately into nirvikalpa samadhi, which is like this non-dual experience that mystics have talked about for thousands of years. But then how do you take that and suddenly translate it into your day-to-day life? And you're just like someone who works at Target. Like it can be very, very, very unnerving. And that's a reason why in the retreats that we facilitated, we place a huge precedence upon the importance of before integration and after integration for several weeks after, because the whole sense of self is going to shift in a really powerful way. And we want to use all the support systems possible to facilitate, giving birth to this new entity.
Yes.
And the other side of that is it can be very dangerous for the psyche to have those crazy experiences with no integration and then try to come back into the world and act exactly as they did before, because it can fragment the mind.
So besides having a guide who knows how to support the actual journey that you would be taking with the psychedelic, obviously, I'm sure the actual choice of, the quality of the substance, I would think that there's some, could one like do a certain, like attenuate the dosage so that appropriately meets where they are in spiritual development? Absolutely. And then also have some kind of, offboarding system of the sustaining it afterward. Is that something that is, I don't know anything about the culture, obviously. I don't know. Do you take different dosages and different strains, right?
Absolutely.
That would better. Okay, good. Yeah.
If you're talking psilocybin, for example, like a lot of people like to microdose it. They'll microdose, they'll take such a small amount that it creates no visual effects or much of a body high, but it just sort of opens up the mind to think creatively or something like that.
Yeah. Or compassionately, I've heard too. Some friends of mine, like it really opens up compassion in the heart. That's what I've heard too.
Yes, absolutely. One of the ways that I think is very wise is to actually muscle test and use the other person's their body as a way of, like if you're working with psychedelic mushrooms, for example, with psilocybin, you muscle test them until their body says this is enough. And then also, I've found there's a huge importance on your intention that you go into working with those things with, and set like a very, very clear intention. It doesn't have to be anything grandiose or crazy, but just setting the intention to receive and be open, and to sort of let go of resistance, and just be there and present with it. It can be powerful. In terms of preparation, the two things that I'd say would be really, really helpful and valuable would be, one, to cultivate a consistent concentration or mindfulness practice, so that you develop the muscle of presence, so that you don't get super overwhelmed in those altered states. So that would be one aspect of it, would be develop a consistent mindfulness practice. And the other part would be maybe to practice or play with breath work, with Qigong, because breath work can get you into a super high state really fast, and then you rapidly come back down into your body. So to sort of get you assimilated, no, but what's the word? Used to those things.
Yeah, assimilated, I think. Yeah. Well, yeah, and you think about it with like the accustomed, sure. with like a mindfulness practice, it will get you in touch with the fact that you are sovereign. That, you know, you are sovereign over the chaos of your nervous system, or the chaos of your mind, or suggestions, you know, that could show up. And
you are no longer the mind. You're that witness that's just watching the mind, watching the emotions and the states, but you don't have to be them.
Right. And I think a good measure of whether that's is what you said, like set an intention. Because I remember hearing that like ages ago and being like, what does that mean? Like, what does set an intention mean? Like, it was like
cliche. So cliche.
Yeah, I'd like to make fun of my old inner voice. But, you know, it just felt so ephemeral. It felt like nothing. So actually knowing that you can set an intention and knowing that you can hold an intention is basically a mindfulness muscle that is developed or not. So, yeah.
And you can call it pre-framing or visualization. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but it's basically, it's almost like inviting your best self to be present within a certain experience.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, like I said, for me, I'm kind of already that open. I'm already there. I'm like, I was channeling an ET earlier. Like, I don't.
It's some other. Not much more point to it.
Yeah, there's not much, but it does have to do with like how the way that my field, my aura is actually how it runs, and I just know it, and I've always known it. But I have a funny story which I've told before on this podcast. And this was ages ago. I was probably about 20, 21 years old, and I actually at that time, for this, like, this is how I know like THC, like pot, does not work for me, because I had experimented with it for a little while, but then
where the edibles come into the story.
Oh Lord, no! I did though. That was the trigger that set me over. But essentially, I experimented with them for a while. I used pot for a while, about a year, I think, and it worked for me. But then all of a sudden, it was like a signal was sent down and it turned off completely. And I've just had CBD for pain, and my friend's like, yeah, it's totally inert, it's just CBD. But no, it shot me off to the moon. I couldn't turn off I could see the fourth dimension with my physical eyes open, and I was like, it was just annoying, and it's a little bit painful because the nervous system is too activated and I couldn't turn it off. But anyway, it was like 2021, and this coworker of mine, she was a little older than me, and she was talking about doing mushrooms and telling me all about it. And I was like, I'm listening, because, you know, I do pot now, you know, like such a nerd. I'm still that nerdy. And she was telling me about like how wonderful it is. She was telling me like, you know, you see all these different colors. And I was like, ooh, I'd like to see new colors. And she's like, yeah. And then I got up to go get a glass of water. I opened the refrigerator and there were fairies and gnomes. And I went, whoa, fuck that. I'm trying to not see fairies and gnomes right now. I don't want to see fairies. I don't know if you know this about me, Gabriel, but I am literally a fae whisperer now. It was true. I was like, I'm white knuckling this reality. I don't want to see fairies and gnomes. And now that's literally what I do, like most of the time, is like connect with, and that's what Saturday and I talked about in the previous episode, is, you know, the nature spirit realm. But I wasn't ready for it. And then I, you know, as I moved a little bit more into my understanding my sovereignty and that I am the master over the mind, I'm still like, nope, still no. That's still a no charge in here. It's just not.
Exactly.
Not
Always trust the no charge.
Yeah.
Bottom
yeah.
line,
but as so many people, I think it's really beautiful and beneficial for.
Especially for PTSD and trauma and things like that. Big time.
Really click that program over. Like you said, the negative or the glitching programs, it can really like sort of restart that.
It allows you to take a step back and objectively analyze whatever your day-to-day routines are that are putting you into a funk or a slump. And really, like, I think one of the beautiful things about psilocybin, so these days, like, I used to work with it much more recreationally when I was younger, but now every few months I might do a solo journey, and I'll just like meditate and chant and sit with stuff for like 8 to 10, probably 8 hours, something like that. And just it's like a magnifying glass that'll take you to so many different things, memories, feelings, experiences, etc. But it does take you, for me anyway, it takes you right into the shadow, and it's very intense. And like, I think that goes hand in hand with the pain body, which is something Eckhart Tolle talks about in The Power of Now. It's not comfortable. And I used to get really scared and overwhelmed in those experiences because it's like what people call a bad trip. I don't really believe in that anymore. But what I do believe is that those medicines can bring us to see things within ourselves that scare us and that we get overwhelmed by. And then we try to run from them. And the act of trying to run away from our problems in real life, honestly, perpetuates and makes the problems worse. Right. So being prepared that no matter what happens, you're just going to accept it and breathe into it. It's one of the ways, I think, to go through those with the most like ease and grace. And the beautiful thing is when you're willing to just go through without trying to escape or go anywhere else, it does tap you into these higher and higher states of consciousness, because you're liberating up that dense, heavy energy to allow yourself to tap into higher and higher dimensions and planes of existence.
Yes. The way out is through. And I mean, even but breathing, just breathing can do that even without the plant medicines. And so again, as a sustainable practice, as a daily practice, because you can't do mushrooms every day. No one would.
Some do, and it's not smart.
It's not good. Well, doesn't it lose its efficacy if you? Yeah.
There's a tryptamine tolerance, but some people will just take more and more and more and more, and they'll have basically binges with it. It's
oh goodness,
it's not smart. And they can. Sadhguru may have talked about it. Something called space neurosis can happen, where people they get so up here and so up, like kind of, it's like their energy. You may be aware of this already, but they get sort of stuck in the astral and have a very hard time being embodied in themselves, or paying their taxes, or just living a human three-dimensional life, because so much of that energy is up here and not in the body. And that's why I think Qigong especially is such a good practice, because it really balances you.
Because it uses the body.
Back in.
Yeah, it's an embodiment, tool, which is really great. Yeah, that being too astral, that is something that and it doesn't have to be just like with a psychedelic or something like that.
All.
Yeah,
no,
just trauma can send people astral. They want to deny. They don't want to be in the physical body. Part of that actually.
Years. Yeah, absolutely. So disassociated, because the awareness just wants to take a vacation into fantasy land.
It's, I mean, you could also say like sort of quote unquote in air quotes, spiritual addiction or religious addiction, those kinds of things. Those are when, and I say it's in quotes because true spirituality is embodied, is calling in the elements, is being physical and natural. Spirituality is natural, natural is spiritual. So the idea of decoupling from the physical experience, not wanting to be here, like this, sometimes people who identify or feel that they're starseeds. I want to go home. I don't want to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. All of that kind of those thoughts. And that's not true, because empirically, as you said, I meant to create a male body. So that's why I'm here, as opposed to all the female bodies that I had before.
Exactly.
So,
I tuned into that as well. It was a funny little telepathic moment. Yeah.
You had a telepathic moment, what, right now?
Oh, I was tuning into the second thread of what you were saying right as you said it, as you brought it up. Grounded. Yes, being grounded, we can get scattered. I'm trying too hard to think about past tangents of conversation. Just going to let it go.
Okay. Grounded. Yeah. But being groundedness is, it's the other part of, it's the roots of the tree, and it's the as above, so below. It's 50% of the Hermetic principle. Do you got it? You got it back?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I got it. I got that too. Yeah, Hermetics.
Oh, I meant like, did you get back your thought?
I also go back to thought. Yeah, so I can relate to that a lot, because part of when I came out of that car accident at 18 years old, I became very obsessed with self-mastery and with self-growth, and with constantly breaking through limiting beliefs and barriers and just overcoming myself every single day, which is excellent. But I've had several times in my life now where I've had almost no sense of identity for a couple of months. And it's been super uncomfortable of just being like, I don't know who I am anymore. Stuff has changed so fast. I don't feel, it can be very, very intense. And in terms of the spiritual addiction, I can remember feeling like, my girlfriend and I have talked about this too, in certain stages of our awakening, feeling like we're not going to be okay unless we have our practice. Like I have to do my breath work. I have to do my Qigong. I have to do my meditation. I have to work out. If I don't do that, I'm going to be in a terrible mood, and I'm going to be blaming and projecting everyone onto everyone else for that. But,
and the universe
really,
says, as you wish.
Right, exactly.
You set that intention.
Roger that. Yeah. And the reality is, if we're just open, all those practices are really just to help us be present here and now with more clarity. So if we just choose to be present with more clarity and throw all the other stuff out the window, you can accomplish a similar result. Yeah. And over time, I've learned, and I'm still learning, to not depend on them as much, but to use them as just like, to do them for the sake of them, not because I have to get somewhere or because I'm not good enough as I am right now here.
It kind of makes me think of, and I know you are, because of the work that you're doing, at least with Saruda, rituals. I mean, they are rituals, what you described as the menu of your personal practices in order to be able to do anything. They're all rituals, but, magic rituals. And that those are just there to help us to, it's like it's both. It's paradoxical. Like if you use a talisman, the talisman is harnessing magic. You don't actually have to have the talisman in order to have that magic. But if you have the talisman, you're going to have you know what I mean? Like it's both. And.
It's a mental anchor to remind you, I have this, I have this, I have this, and then broadcast that message into the field. That's something I've learned. Like he used to talk to us about a lot too, is all ritual is elaborate self-hypnosis. It's basically programming your subconscious with certain intentions in a really deep way.
And as well, programming your body, because it does usually have physical, it's an embodiment, is like Qigong, as we were saying. So it's programming the nervous system, it's programming the subconscious mind, and it is bringing it it's signaling it and calling the elements to you. So you create a new physical body as well. So it's really holistic, really big stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of rituals are you, besides the breath work and everything? Are there some rituals that you are enjoying?
In
terms of practices?
Yes. In terms of my day-to-day, the breathwork is kind of the cornerstone. I tend to work out most days per week. Like a lot of that, it's like I could consider that the alchemy. I've been getting back into the morning pages exercise, where you just have a straight mental stream, just write out a bunch of random gibberish, and it clears the mind, empties that out. And that's almost all like internal state alchemy. So that would be like almost like one branch of magic. And then another branch that we started learning more with Saruda is the branch of chemistry. And that would be like mixing different ritual ingredients together, working with different holy powders, creating consecrated candles. And it's almost like the lazy man or woman's way of doing magic, because you can write an intention, like an abundance manifestation, create like a fourth dimensional sigil, like delete it, like mix. It's literally like you mix together a bunch of ingredients, boom, you get your result, and you don't even have to be super focused internally with your state throughout that. But it immediately just bridges to the quantum field and starts to create an automatic response. Yeah. So it's been very interesting. I haven't dove super, super deep into the rituals that he's shared yet, because it's all very, very new. And there's a lot of downloads that we're still unpacking, and just life in general has been crazy. I just started working with a solar company doing marketing and sales. So I'm very, very busy. But the doors are open. So if anyone is interested in learning, there's a plethora of different things that I would be honored to share with people out there. And really, it's much less about what I have to share with you and much more about what it is that you're interested in learning. So,
okay, great. So folks should reach out to you or something like that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if they'd like to, they're most welcome to. For sessions or for classes or whatever. I'm extremely passionate about human potential and about tools that we can use that are very practical to overcome our limitations and allow us to really catapult forward without feeling weighed down by things.
Including, if I may, I feel like a rippling in the field. Some of those limitations are time, and it's not that that's not true, but the construct of the life is created by the consciousness. And so I've been I mean, and periodically am, like I don't have enough time. But in fact, we can design our life. And maybe it's not overnight. It doesn't happen overnight, but just even so anyway, part of the limiting the potential is something like, well, I don't have time to go and like take a class, or I don't have time to even meditate or
Right.
breathe in the morning.
Right. I
But
woke
if
up
we
at 4:45 today, and then I went to the gym, got my workout in, came back, did all my meditation so that by 7 or 8 I'm ready. It just
yeah.
discipline. Like if you really want something enough, you're gonna find a way to make it happen.
Well,
And
and honestly, like 15 minutes less sleep. I know some people are ridiculously sleep deprived, but 15 minutes less sleep so that you can catalyze something like breathing or, meditation of some kind it's more valuable than the 15 minutes of sleep. And I'm not,
Mhm.
I don't, I have a lifestyle now where I don't generally have sleep deprivation, but I have in the past. And if that's where you have to dig into it, but we promise you that your life will start to counterbalance it. If you make the sacrifice, maybe the one time, be
Mhm.
disciplined, which by the
Mhm.
way, I love the word disciplined really means to be a disciple. So this is being a
I love that.
disciple
A
of
disciple of
yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Isn't that, I
Definitely.
mean, so that will be so deeply honored if you choose to be a disciple of yourself for, who you really are. You will,
Self-discipline is self-love. It's
it
like
is.
on so many levels, and also self-love is self-care. So there's another
Hmm.
aspect of it. Like I love David Goggins, for example. He's a crazy ultra runner, Navy SEAL athlete, and he's always just go, grind, 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 discipline, discipline. And so there's a balance there too.
Sure.
And you like care for yourself, love yourself, like be gentle, but also really set intentions and stick to them, and notice how your degree of self-respect will evolve by doing that. And another
Yes.
thing too, like maybe you'll lose 15 minutes of sleep, or maybe try to go to bed 15 minutes earlier. If you have a
Right.
hard time sleeping, get rid of technology that's going to suppress your melatonin,
Hmm.
read or journal, replay the day in your mind so that your brain is less awake and wired, and then just
Hmm.
allow yourself to fall asleep, wake up and get after it. And
Yep.
visualize yourself waking up feeling energized. That's something I do that typically always works. If I feel really alert before I go to bed, I'll imagine like I'm sending that excessive alert energy into the version of myself that's waking up, and then I'll fall
Ah.
asleep, and then it's like I get that boost immediately when I wake up.
Oh, that's brilliant. I don't,
Mhm.
I guess I feel, what I usually do, and here's the thing is like, we're not perfect, right? I don't know why sometimes I don't fall asleep having, you know, like highly conscious, basically. When I fall asleep and I'm I'm self hypnotizing, I'm giving myself suggestions about how wonderful the sleep is that I'm moving into, and how beneficial it is, and how comfortable it is, and how deep and restful it is, and the wonderful spiritual things that will happen while I'm having deep and restful sleep, blah, blah, blah. That, I mean, it doesn't take me any time. So I have no excuse. And then
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
some nights, and I wake up at 3 and I'm like, what's going on?
Setting alarms helps a lot. Set an alarm with a
Mhm.
little note as a
I'm just
reminder, something
lazy.
like that.
I just don't
Right,
want to be a disciple of myself in those nights. No,
right.
it's not that bad though, but it is such a beautiful self care when I do take care of my
Mhm.
sleep in that way, and give myself those suggestions for the sleep. But I've never thought about that. I don't know if yeah, I guess I don't really have insomnia that much, but that's a great insomnia tool. Consciousness practice is to send that energy to the other side of sleep. Just shoot it
It can
over
help.
there.
Also,
Hmm.
listening to 528 hertz while you sleep very quietly can
Yeah.
help a lot. Um, if people have a really hard time getting up in the morning, which I would be one of those people, I set my alarm clock in the bathroom. So I have to get out of bed to go
Ah.
get to it. Then I
Oh,
splash cold water on my face, brush my teeth, and then I'm up. But if
I
I
would
have
be
it next to me, I always snooze it. I'm
Oh
just
yeah, I
like,
would be
no,
so mad at
cuddles.
myself. I think I did that once because I was really worried about I would be so mad at myself for doing that though.
Well, the other
I'm
thing
kidding.
too is because my girlfriend and I sleep next to each other, I know that alarm may wake her up for a couple minutes too. And I'm like, oh, if that happens, like I have to get up because otherwise I'm just damaging, like I'm hurting her sleep unnecessarily. And so it's almost like I know if I do that, like there's no way I'm backing out of it because otherwise it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, so tell us about your sessions and your classes because you mentioned if they wanted to have sessions with you or classes. So I would love to hear about the kind of work and kind of services you offer.
Okay, so let's see. If we're talking about sessions, I, for some reason, have had a ton of success helping people to resolve physical imbalances or injuries that have some sort of repressed emotion connected to them. I've worked with
Mm.
people with herniated discs. Worked with a girl one time who had a broken hand, and 2 days
Oof.
later, her hand had healed itself, and it had been broken 10 days prior. So, like,
Wow.
I'm not giving myself that credit. I'm giving credit to the people doing the healing.
Hmm.
But just for whatever reason, I've been able to have a lot of success holding that space for people to have these really miraculous physical healing experiences.
Amazing.
So that's one aspect. And I have a lot of different tools that I could blend together.
Hmm.
Just if I try to rattle them off real quick, I'll use like a heart coherence, meta loving kindness practice, therapeutic breath work, qigong, NLP, like framing practices, EMDR to balance the left and right brain and do other stuff, EFT to rewrite the nervous system. There's so many different things, but the bottom line is whoever it is I'm working with, I can tend to grab a few tools that are going to be perfect for them and check in and make sure that it's in alignment, and then put something together that perfectly meets their need and fulfills whatever it is.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Specifically, recently, I've been doing sessions to help people to inspire themselves to take action on their New Year's resolutions, because I know how we set some intentions, we feel really stoked about it for 3 days, and we sort of fall off and get back into our habits and routines. And then we're like, oh, like I really wanted to do these things. So basically, the sessions are super fun. We identify any blocks that are there, any stories, any limiting beliefs. We transform those really quickly, establish a deep state of safety in the body, and then we create a quantum manifestation template where they visualize the identities that they're calling in
Hmm.
into the new year, and we really, really deeply amplify those through breathing practices and movement. And so we basically hypnotize the subconscious, or program the subconscious to be your best friend and your biggest supporter. It's like you're taking another 95% of the fuel tank and you're setting it with intentions that are going to be in harmony with what you consciously want to create for yourself. And the guy I just did that with, he's felt like he's been shot out of a cannon in the best way. He's been getting up at 5 and doing all these practices. He just launched his own podcast, so it's really
Wonderful.
exciting. Yeah,
That's beautiful. What beautiful work.
yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been so fun and so amazing. And I have to acknowledge your name, Gabriel, being named after the Archangel Gabriel of communication, expression, joy. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I love
Yeah.
Gabriel.
I have
This
to
has been
shout
really
out
great.
Sadi Da as well for
Yeah.
inviting me to come on the podcast. That was really
Yes.
amazing of him. I'm excited for us all to come together and connect as well.
Yes, we
Um,
are planning, the three of us, Gabriel, myself, and Saruda, to have a podcast together. So you guys stay tuned for that. But everyone, just check out all of the links, of course, for Gabriel's work and how you can be in contact. And thanks so much for being on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Would you like me still to say anything about classes?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, I thought that last bit was classes. Sorry.
I was talking. Okay.
Rewind.
I was talking mostly just about sessions specifically to attune
Yeah,
to
yeah.
people's needs, but it's similar with classes. So kind of my forte and what I'm most passionate about is human potential and how we
Hmm.
can really call forth our best selves.
Hmm.
But whatever it is that you really want to learn, whether you want to become more successful or confident or influential or whatever, I can tend to pull together the best of what I've learned and put something together that's going to be really beneficial for you.
Hmm.
If you want to learn to heal your own trauma and or to help other people to heal theirs, we can do that. We can do energy healing. We can do qigong. Um, breath work is something I love as well. It's less about, again, I feel like it's less about what I want to share, and it's more about like what people feel really drawn to. And so I just
Yeah.
kind of want to leave the door open so that if people feel really inspired and want to connect and reach out, they can, and we can work from there.
And do you do, when you say classes, are you doing group classes, individual classes, online, in person? What are all those practicalities?
For the most part, I've been doing individual classes online, and
Hmm.
then I've been doing group retreats in Sedona on occasion. I think we're doing a men's retreat in June, but I haven't really planned the year out too much with that. I do live in Las Vegas, so if there are listeners who are close by, I'm totally down to meet up and connect. But Yeah, I want to be as flexible as possible, but right now I think the best we can do is do Zoom classes, and then
Yeah.
if enough students come together and want to learn, we can do some group classes too.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, now I feel awkward like doing another ending. So
I felt it. Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute honor and pleasure to
Thank
have all
you.
these interesting conversations. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. I hope you felt that resonance with Gabriel that I did. We had a great time. And I have to tell you, breathwork, as Gabriel teaches breathwork, it's just so, so important. And really, many of us are trying to work through stress. We're trying to work through anxiety and even through depression. And breathwork really is a tremendous key to finding freedom from any of those states of being, because actually it restores our natural state of being, our true state of being. So I do highly recommend breath work, whether you seek it out from some offering that Gabriel is giving, or if it's from my friend Olivia Rae, who I've talked about. And you can find her work by looking up Olivia Rae. She is a beautiful breathwork facilitator, and she's going to be on the podcast again really soon. Breathwork, though, it comes up so often in my sessions and in the work that I do with individuals as well as with classes. Now, I do want to also make a special invitation to you all to the Mystic Arts Academy. My Mystic Arts Academy is really it's like a gem. It's my experimental space. I'm very open and fluid. The whole space, I guess, is channeled, and there's so much synchronicity between the students, the members, the subscribers. When we come together, it's really magical. And then for me personally, as I plan out the twice monthly workshops, they're channeled. And so sometimes I will be given a month in advance or a few weeks in advance or a couple months in advance, depending on, however I'm bringing it through. I will just get the description and a title, and I won't entirely know what it means. And when the alignment happens, oftentimes it is just, I could not have planned it. There's no way I could have planned it. And what is going on between, with the world, with with cosmic astrological events. And then in addition to that, I often just don't get very much information in advance of the workshop, and the entire thing is channeled. But then there are also other times where there is a lot of research that I do that goes along with the workshop, and also channeling. And so one of the most recent ones was Gaia Prophecy, and it was essentially an energy update and also a forecast about where we are right now, where we're moving, and what we can do about it, and how we can, as whether you think you are a spiritual seeker or a wanderer, a way shower, really gave us guidance on where we are and how we can align with our positions as perhaps guides and guardians. And again, remembering that guides and guardians it's just the ones who are here to be of service. So it's not aggrandized, it's not arrogant. In fact, it is a humbled position. And I think if you came here to this podcast, you may feel that. Anyway, I want to invite you to the Mystic Arts Academy. Check it out. You can drop in or you can subscribe. And there are some very exciting things about to turn around with that. So stay tuned about that. And we also have some very exciting guests and other podcasts coming up here on the channel. I invite you also to the YouTube channel, where I post sometimes excerpts from the podcast, video versions of it, sometimes brand new material. I have a whole series that I'm just completing on chakra magic. And I had the best time with that. I put it here on the podcast feed as well. But I do invite you to go ahead and check it out on YouTube. And that's just youtube.com/Tricia Carr. You can just look up my name and you'll find me there. Find me on Instagram too, at Tricia Carr Charm. And that's the end of my invitations. And now, here are my salutations. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.